We all have those flashbacks when you're at a place you've been to before, or when you see something, or when you smell a scent that takes you back to the simpler times. Hugs from your favorite relatives, the time when you got to play with a cute animal, the feeling of breathlessness when someone either inspired you or did something nice for you, and so on. We could all relate to how we feel when we hear it being described, no matter how different the experience may be. Have you ever wondered why that is? Hello, my name is Mikey Nakata, and this is about 719. These numbers have played an important role in how I learned to truly appreciate being alive. For this video, I want to tell you a story. This is about the first time I had fallen in love with a man. A good place to start would be from when I first met the guy in high school. It was about 5 years after moving into Australia. I've repeated this sob story before. I had to leave my friends, my belongings, and move into a house where a man who had disguised himself as my father figure corrupted every ounce of faith I had for another human being. I didn't know how broken I was at the time, or how much help I needed. The only thing that gave me comfort was being around my friends at school who didn't know what I was going through, who didn't know the person I truly was. I was good at being likable, saying the right things to say, and making the right kind of enemies felt like it naturally came to me, and it worked. Even if I didn't actually like the people I hang out with, it was so much better than being at home, being in my room, alone. So you could say that I liked going to school, but that's not really the focus of this story. There was an exchange student by the name of Kay. He's new to the country, so a teacher asked me to show him around the school and help him if he needed anything. It's strange how I feel like I'm there when I'm talking about this. I remember the metal stairs that were divided at the end, with the loud sound of the basketball being slammed against the ground as people shouted at each other. Kay was short and stubby, like a dachshund, with short limbs, an average length torso. It's an exaggeration. He's not disabled or anything, but he was noticeably short. I agreed to help him out for a day because being popular doesn't come with extra time to spend elsewhere. I'm obviously kidding, but I never really liked being around strangers, so I wanted to get away from him as soon as possible. Maybe it's also because of the fact that he's Japanese, which doesn't really help with me being extremely homesick. I spent the day introducing him to my friends, taking him to classes, explaining what to expect, so forth. That continued till the end of the day. Then we both went our separate ways, and my job was done. He sat with my lunch group the next day, and everyone was wondering why he was sitting with us. They all looked at me like I had something to do with it, but I had no idea, and frankly, everyone was annoyed. He was trying to talk to us like he knew us or something, and our group is not the friendliest group in school. But he didn't do anything bad, so we kept him around. The next day, he did the same. And the next. Then again. Eventually, it no longer felt strange to have him around. I didn't even notice how well everyone was getting along with Kay, or how well I was getting along with him. He was good at making people laugh, but he knew when to be serious, so people liked him for it. Whenever my friends wanted to hang out, I began inviting Kay to come with us. He was always so fascinated by almost everything in Australia. He was always so excitable, always cheerful, almost everything that I wanted to be. Weekdays that I had spent in that school ever since Kay arrived, we were always together. The time I spent in the library with him, he told me about his past, his goal, and these dumb jokes that wasn't even funny, but somehow the way he told it made me laugh. I was happy. We always went home on the same train, and I would ask him to visit my place almost all the time. We would spend our time playing games or talking about school until dinner was ready, and he would go home to his homestay house on the last train available. 7:19. There was an African exchange student whom I forgot the name of, but he was a rapper, and the title of the album he was giving out was 719. I didn't know what that meant to the rapper, but Kay took an odd reaction to it when he noticed the title. He told me it was his birthday. That year, when his birthday came around, we went out to treat ourselves with an ice cream. Actually, it was an ice block, for a low cost of less than $1. But he seemed to be happy. We spent the Christmas holidays apart. While I was visiting relatives and friends, Kay flew home to see his family. Not long after that, he was back to school again. But it felt uncomfortable. The entire holiday I was away from him, it was so depressing. Like no matter where I was or who I was with, I just didn't want to be there. I'll just cut to the chase and say, I missed him. I missed him a lot. It was like an obsession, wanting to know where he is, who he is with, what he is doing. Looking back, even with the experience and knowledge that I have as an adult, nothing felt more miserable than the time when I desperately needed to see him again. And that made me very uncomfortable. It was that moment when I realized that Kay had become a presence that I could not live without. I was terrified. Going back to school made it even worse. It was our final year in high school. Now that I'm self-aware with how I feel about Kay, I started noticing the changes in his environment. People would smile when they see him, and they would approach him for a chat. He would get called over by different groups of classmates, get invited to many gatherings. He had a good relationship with teachers. He was loved by everyone. And I fucking hated it. A year before then, I'm not trying to turn this into a brag, but I was in his position, getting the exact same treatment. And now I've become this ornament that hangs behind him everywhere he went. All the years I have put into figuring out how I could fit in with any crowd, the amount of time and effort spent making sure people understand me when I speak in English, just so I could get rid of this crippling loneliness, it felt like I was being replaced. I was jealous. But he didn't deserve the blame. I realized over time that people loved him not because of his ability, but because of his flaws. I had focused too much on being good at everything just to be likable, but I didn't wake up to the fact that it was making me boring. As a struggling flower, no matter how hard it spreads its petals, no one would notice it blossoming in a field of many other flowers that had already bloomed. Kay just happened to be a flower of a different color. I just didn't realize it at the time. I didn't know how to process my emotions, and then I didn't want to feel it anymore. I distanced myself as much as I could. I told him to go home without me and pretended as if I had work to do. I left my group of friends because he would be there, stopped inviting him to come home with me. I even hid behind things or started a fight just so he would stay away. All because I didn't want to feel vulnerable. I imagined it to be like an addiction, how a smoker would feel about quitting, but you still want to get a little bit of smoke in to get that quick fix. Whenever I eased up, I would fall right back to him, and he would always forgive me for all the awful things I do to him. He was always there when I needed him. I hated how that made me feel so relieved, so happy. A few months had passed, and I stopped fighting my emotion and allowed it to take me where it takes me. We were back to our usual routine. See each other in the morning, go to class, spend the morning break with our friend group, go to class, eat lunch together, go to class, do work in the library together until teacher kicks us out. We would go back to my place together, kill time, then he goes home for the night. During the time together, I would ask him a lot of questions. looking for the kind of answers that would hurt me. Answers like, he's not gay, he has a crush on a girl below our grade, he can't come home with me tonight, we don't have the same class today, he's going to an event or a party that I'm not invited to, he's busy on the weekends so he can't see me, he will be flying back to Japan at the end of the year and will not be coming back. After graduation, he will not be coming back. He's not coming back. 7:19. I keep remembering the time when we were talking about how we're always together, and he jokingly said, "It's almost as if you're my girlfriend." I remember how badly I wanted that to be the reality. If my gender was different, if I was attractive enough to make you feel the same way I felt. Looking back at the time, I would have traded anything for that to come true. I was madly in love with him. The amount of time I wished I could hold his hand while we were walking together, or tell him how much he meant to me. I may have been okay with just being able to tell him I loved him, but that's not how we worked. That's not what was expected of a boy to do. Or maybe I was too afraid of destroying what we had. This will all come to an end once we graduate. So I decided to make the most of it. I gathered my friends, secured a place for a venue, and planned to throw one hell of a party for his birthday. It took a lot of time, a lot of coordination, and a bunch of people. I convinced my parents to pitch in so we can get a decent sized birthday cake. Girls took care of the decoration. Guys made sure Kay didn't suspect a thing. And my job was to lure him in. 7:19. It was July 19th. And a few days before that, I invited him to celebrate his birthday at a restaurant in the casino. I told him that my parents will be waiting for us there, and he can help himself to anything he wants. Kay was very excited. During the bus ride to the casino, I told him I may or may not have forgotten to bring my mom's bank card, which I had with me while visiting a friend. We had to get off the bus, then catch another bus to go to my friend's house. But we got lost. I never even went to that place, so stupid me for not checking where the house actually was. I went around the block several times before Kay started becoming suspicious of where I was going. While trying to conceal my panic, I texted my friends to find out how close I was. After a good 5 minutes of walking, we finally located the place. We stepped into the driveway, then I sent a signal. Kay hesitantly followed me into the property. Suddenly, the entire place lit up with bright lights, bass blasting through the area, followed by an ambush pouring out of the garage, shouting happy birthday. Kay gets lifted onto the crowd and is constantly being thrown up while everyone cheers for the birthday boy. He made a face I never saw before. I watched him being carried into the backyard. I was still at the driveway. Crouched down, crying. The emotion overwhelmed me. I wasn't sure if the tears were coming from seeing him bask in pure joy, or the fact that this moment was the peak of my friendship with Kay. After this, we got the rest of the year before he flies back to Japan. We're going to move forward with our lives, being apart from each other, and eventually, we will grow to be somebody else. It's always been that way, ever since I realized how fragile human connection is. But maybe that's exactly what I wanted. I can't live out my life trying to convince myself that I am happy just being next to the person who can't love me back. So I'm going to enjoy the ride until time runs out. This party is my birthday gift for him, and at the same time, a farewell gift. A night that he will never forget. After I'm done crying, I'm going to be a part of that memory. Let me get all the sadness and negativity out of my system. Let me have this moment. 7:19. And sadly, this is where it ends. There were more to tell, but I don't think it's worth adding more time to this video. If I could give you all a quick summary, in September of the same year, my mother's vein in her brain popped and she fell into a coma. I phrased it that way because not everyone knows what a brain aneurysm is. The routine that Kay and I had after school then turned into visits at the hospital. I had a lot on my plate, not knowing if I should focus on exams, or my mother's health, or the fact that this one person who makes me happy is about to leave for good. The priority was my mother, obviously. She woke up from a long rest after a month of being in a coma. I think that was when the downfall into depression began. I realized how little time I had for anything. I don't think I was able to give him a proper farewell before the plane left with him, but that's not the point. Maybe some of you already realized why I'm making this video today. It's to say happy birthday to a certain special someone, somewhere on this planet. It's been 10 years, but I still remember who you used to be like it was yesterday. It took me 10 years to make this video, but I had to be in a better place to speak about this without falling apart. It's finally out, and I'm glad. From here on, I'm talking to Kay, and Kay only. Ever since you left, I've lost friends, family, and a large part of myself that made me used to feel a certain way about my past. I've also gained many of what I lost. I'm now surrounded by people who accept me for the person I am, and loves me for the things I do for them. When I find myself standing still at a decision, and I don't know who to turn to, I think about what you would do. I learned so much from being at your side, and made me realize the joy in making someone happy through connecting with them. Maybe I'm exaggerating who you used to be at the time, but it makes no difference how much of a hero you are to me. 10 years have brought a lot of changes to our lives. I don't know where you are, what you're doing, and to be honest with you, I don't want to know. I don't want to find out how I would feel when I see anything that has to do with you. But this doesn't stop me from wishing you the best birthday this universe could provide. I hope you're surrounded by good people and living the best life. I found my place, so I hope you found yours too. I may not feel the same way about you anymore, but I know that my love for you at the time was true. Thank you for being a part of my life. Happy birthday, and Black Stomach. 今でも未だによくわからない冗談だよね。